that democracy is taken as dictatorship of majority, or in other words, you can say oppression of minority. You can.
Most of the work on democracy we get is from the critics, from Aristotle, from Plato, and they were the people who were actually against democracy. They were not the ones who used to support democracy.
So we have the Abraham Accords with the rapprochement with Israel of the Gulf states, the growing rapprochement which started from 2020 with the UAE, has extended to Bahrain, Morocco even.
Assalamu alaikum, dear audience. Here we are with our new program with the name of Prime Talk at the Bahria University TV channel. And today we are having our two very distinguished guests with us, and two well-known personalities of international relations fraternity. Let me introduce both of you. We are having with us Dr. Fizza Batool. Dr. Fizza Batool is a graduate of Karachi University, and she's a very famous policy researcher, an author, and former Stimson Center Fellow. She's a regular contributor of South Asian Voices as well. And then we are having Miss Arhama Siddiqa. Arhama is a very good researcher working at ISSI, and she is a very good writer as well. I must say I'm thankful for both of you for coming over here. I myself, Fateh Najib Bhatti, a faculty member working at Bahria University International Relations Cluster. So I guess we should start our discussion. Dr. Fizza, I would like to start from you. As far I'm concerned, as much as I know about your area of interest and your expertise, it's democratization, comparative politics, and then the Afghanistan situation, and other issues related to these domains. So, Dr. Fizza, can you enlighten us that what is democracy?
Okay, this is an interesting question, because social sciences, almost every single concept in social sciences tend to change its shapes with respect to the people using it. Right. Because when you say social sciences, it means that society is using this concept. Right. So the words hold no meaning at all, irrespective of their usage. It all depends on who is using that word. So I feel that this debate on what exactly democracy means, it's very it's of no use. Right. So when I conduct research on democracy, what I do is I try and simplify things. I try and focus on what is called a minimalistic definition. What was the objective of having democracy? Right. And then the best approach I would suggest to students, and this is for academia, because democracy is an ideal and a practical system as well. So if you're focusing on what ideal democracy is, what usually definitions do, I would suggest to go back to the Greek city-states and try and understand why democracy was developed, why democracy was introduced as a system. And obviously, we don't have much literature or data about how democracy actually practically was implemented in Greek city-states, because most of the work on democracy we get is from the critics, from Aristotle, from Plato, and they were the people who were actually against democracy. They were not the ones who used to support democracy. So we get data about what ideal they were trying to achieve. Right. And we don't have actual data about what was the practice in Greek city-states, particularly about Athenian democracy. I found that there were just two main objectives. And the first objective was to increase the political franchise, to include as many people as was possible in that society. And the second objective was to give political equality. to let everyone have access to the policy making, and then give each voice an equal share in the policy making. So for me, these are the two prime objectives of democracy. So I try and analyze every single practical democracy. Obviously, democracy has evolved a lot, and Roman Republican culture has been added representative democracy, it has converted into representative democracy. But still, I believe the two objectives remains my parameter to judge whether a country is a good democracy or not.
Not right. So you want to say, which I understood, that there are two benchmarks occurring. Okay. So we usually different other things related to this concept of democracy, just like democratization, liberal democracy, illiberal democracy, Western liberal democracy, and democratic values, of course. So can you elaborate briefly on these things?
The problem is, particularly, it's linked to the colonial period, and perhaps the Europeanization of democracy, if I can use the word.
Oh, very good usage of word, I must say.
So what happened was that the original crude concept of democracy, it evolved over time, and a lot of other things added. And the unfortunate thing was that when we were introduced to this concept, we were sold it as when democracy was sold as a perfect sort of system which could achieve everything. There will be stability, there will be economic growth, there will be, because it was a time when the world was divided between the democratic and the non-democratic political forces, and we were told that just have democracy and everything will be fine. And that was the problem, because as I told you, the only two good things democracy can do is it can give voice to general public, and it can ensure that there is a system of political equality, and that political equality is not equal to equality before law. It's not equal to equality of say. It's just the equality of making political decisions. That's it. So the objective was very limited. It was very defined. It was very targeted. And in Europe, they added a lot of other things while democracy was growing. So a rule of law was added. Constitutional liberalism was added.
Rights were added.
Yeah. So we were given something in the name of democracy which was actually not democracy. A lot of other values have been added there. And we thought that just by having elections will achieve that, which was impossible. So liberal democracy, if you use this term, it's basically a democracy where liberal values tend to overshadow democratic values. And there is a lot of literature on this thing, that liberalism, the concept of liberalism and the concept of democracy, they tend to contradict each other. So this is very strange, because in Europe, the rise of populism is believed to be caused by the liberal hegemony, the control of liberal forces, the control of democracy by the liberal forces.
You mean to say it has overshadowed?
Yeah. I mean, when we try and adopt a system and try and have everything which Europe has achieved without having their values, without having their institutions, we somehow feel that there is something wrong with our democracy, which is not, I believe. I think that we have not given due respect or due appreciation to what we have achieved as a democratic country.
In other terms, I want to clarify this point, that do this concept of democracy and the democratic values relate to the societal values and specifically related to any culture or things like that? Do you think? Is it relevant to us?
Yeah, actually institutions are supposed to be built on values.
Right.
And values are always culturally or socially driven.
Right.
The problem with us is that we have adopted institutions from here and there
It's an amalgamation of
without having the values. So
Right.
we don't actually accept the very idea on which the institution of democracy was built, that every single person, every single individual is by birth equal to the other one.
Right.
This concept, we haven't accepted it as a society. We have a hierarchical setup in our families. We have a hierarchical setup in every social institution.
Of course.
And we try and have democracy, which is impossible unless you adopt that value.
Very good. I think another interesting thing out of these valid points which you have discussed. Is it right to say that most of the time the conditions of democracy and the practices we witness mostly in developing nations and underworld world, that democracy is taken as dictatorship of majority, or in other words you can say oppression of minority, you can say. Is it valid enough to designate such kind of titles
Okay.
to raw formed democracy?
Democracy has always been a dictatorship of majority.
Right.
The original crude concept was
Right.
always to give voice to the majority.
Right.
The very reason it was developed was because in the Greek city-states, for a long period of time, the tyrannic rulers and the oligarchic setup was unable to satisfy the majority, the masses, which were since it was a society where all adult males are to participate in the military.
Yeah.
So most of the people in the army were unsatisfied, and
Right.
this was the prime reason they came up with an idea that these people should have some voice, because they are giving their lives to the security of a particular city-state, and they have no voice in the policy decision making in deciding which country to attack and which country to defend from.
Attack, of course.
So this was the main reason.
Right.
Sorry, I somehow forget your question.
No, it's okay. I was just asking about the concept of the dictatorship of majority and oppression of minority.
So the assembly, the Greek assembly ecclesia, the concept was there was a Greek term which means that who wishes to. So if there is around 40,000 people were eligible to have say in the decision making. And that assembly had capacity of 5,000 people. So the concept was that if, for instance, we recently have a transgender act, so anyone who feels that this particular issue is something that concerns me, I need to be there. So first come, first service basis. So whoever, the first 5,000 people who were there, they were allowed to participate in the assembly. They were allowed to talk and with equality. And then there was voting.
Right. So quite valid enough, I must say. Now I would like to ask a few things to Ms. Arhama as well. Let's engage her in our discussion as well. Arhama, I came to know about your area of interest related to Middle Eastern politics. And that's quite interesting for us. Being a Islamic Republic, country with the name of Pakistan, we always associate our sentiments, our emotions, and historic and cultural ties with the Middle Eastern country. So, it's from my point of view, it would be very fruitful to ask you a few things related to Middle East. But wouldn't it be interesting to let us know what is this Middle Eastern region?
Okay, so Middle East is sometimes referred to as the Western Asia.
Right.
So that automatically signals that it lies to the west of Asia. There are the Gulf countries, of course. There is Syria, Lebanon, Jordan. The oldest issue is, of course, Israel-Palestine issue. Then you have countries in northern Africa which also associate themselves with the Middle East. So the region itself is Middle East, North Africa, MENA region. But those countries say that we're not Middle East totally, we are Maghreb region. So in that we have Libya, Egypt, Tunisia, Algeria, and Morocco. And so, yeah, Western Asia, I think the term automatically signals what exactly is Middle East.
What's the importance of this region while living in Pakistan as a student of politics or international relations or any common citizen of subcontinent?
For us, as you have mentioned already, we are the Islamic Republic of Pakistan, right? So we have an automatic religious affiliation with the countries of the Middle East because we share common religious ties and also automatically cultural ties as well. With Saudi Arabia, for example, we have Makkah, Medina. With Iran, it's our neighbor also. Also, there's a significant Shia population within Pakistan which also associates itself to Iran, Iraq, Syria, and all the Shia majority countries in the Middle East. We have, for the subcontinent, so we had the Khilafat movement in the 1920s, which was basically for Turkey. So we have close ties with Turkey in that regard as well. Then we have our leadership has ties with the country, with leaders of the Middle East as well. Bilawal Bhutto's, I think his grandmother paternal was from Iran. So we have, those ties as well. So of course we do as a Pakistani and largely as a person of the subcontinent, there is a close association with the Middle Eastern countries, especially the Gulf states.
I would like to extend this question to a next level. So why we should study the strategic developments in Middle East or the geopolitics of Middle East?
The Middle East, the dynamics in the Middle East are changing rapidly. While there are a lot of developments in the Middle East, I will point to a few developments which are indirectly or directly affecting Pakistan.
Right.
So we have the Abraham Accords with the rapprochement with Israel of the Gulf states, the growing rapprochement which started from 2020 with the UAE, has extended to Bahrain, Morocco even. And then there's also the question, again this portends the question of should Pakistan recognize Israel? That is very important for us. Then we have the US-China competition in the Gulf countries especially and the Middle East at large. And because China is our neighbor and our close ally, and of course US is also our ally. Yeah. So we don't understand how to, we can't take sides in this competition obviously. So we have to balance in that respect. Yeah. Then of course Iran is our neighbor, but we have close ties with Saudi Arabia and with all the Gulf states. Now these states and Iran do not get along. They have, and especially Saudi Arabia and Iran.
Antagonism going on there.
So even though there have been peace rounds facilitated by Iraq and Jordan in recent times, 5 to 6 rounds, that these two countries should settle their matters, but still the animosity remains. Last week only, US officials said that Saudi Arabia has claimed that Iran will attack them soon. Iran has obviously denied these rumors, but again, it is a problem for Pakistan. Being a Sunni majority state, we have Iran neighbor, we have a Shia majority, so we have to balance our ties with both these countries as well. That is very important for us. Also important for Pakistan, of course, is that each of these Gulf countries have their own national visions. Really? So Saudi Vision 2030, Qatar Vision 2030, we have sent our troops to Qatar for the FIFA World Cup, which will start on Sunday. And Pakistan is the only country to have, on special request of Qatar, to have sent its soldiers over there. No other countries' soldiers are there. These countries have their special visions, Oman 2040 vision, Bahrain 2035. So it's important for Pakistan because each of these countries have construction opportunities for Pakistani workers. And also, of course, I forgot to mention how since the 1970s oil boom, so Pakistan, a large number of Pakistani workers reside in the Gulf. So 86% of our remittances, according to the State Bank of Pakistan, come from the Gulf. Right. So in that regard, especially, of course, that is the foremost reason Pakistan, these countries are important for the Gulf.
I most appreciate you have very well explained this thing. But I want to ask just one thing. While discussing or reading about real politics, we always say it's a politics is very harsh phenomenon. So we were discussing that Shiite Iran or Salafi KSA or other Gulf countries are antagonists.
Yeah.
They are always on loggerheads. We usually witness such kind of developments and statements of their leaders and practices. Do you think the religion is still, or sect-based politics is still playing a major role in the conflicts of Middle East?
While the sectarian conflict is at the baseline of these conflicts, I think it's more about economics now.
Right.
I think because especially after the COVID-19 pandemic, the world has realized that you need to have sustainable economic income from somewhere. You don't have to be an economic lightweight, you have to be an economic heavyweight. So all these countries, even if you look at the rapprochement with Israel, it's to do more so with economics. So yes, they have said in the Abraham Accords that we will resolve the Palestinian issue, we will look, but not one of these countries has now openly looked at the Palestinian issue. And it is in cold storage now. Nobody looks at Palestine. We hear of it, it's in the social media, but that's it. Every year we see some news of Palestine, but that's it. So while sectarian issues are at the baseline, it's more about economics. And for example, the GCC itself, the countries of the GCC, they have enmities between themselves based on economics. So Saudi Arabia, UAE and Qatar at the forefront. We all witnessed the 2017 Gulf embargo blockade against Qatar. So at the baseline, yes, Muslim Brotherhood, Al Jazeera, there were reasons, but I believe, it's my personal view, that economics is at the baseline of everything.
So we are right to say that geostrategic domain has been overtaken by geoeconomics.
Yes.
Right. Fizza, coming towards you, I would like to ask few more things for my own interest as well, keeping in mind your area of expertise and the knowledge you are having, which we all are well aware of, who know you. Let's talk about the political system and specifically enlighten us a little bit about the political system of Pakistan, and you can also relate it to the contemporary challenges to the political institutions in Pakistan.
Okay. If you elaborate a bit, by political system, you mean the ideal political system?
The
contemporary issues?
What's the concept of political system? What do we understand from the term political system? Then definitely you can relate it to the ongoing situation.
Political system in a very simplistic fashion is amalgamation of a lot of institutions based on a very defined value.
Right.
So ideally Pakistan is an Islamic republic.
Right.
So ideally it is a mix of Islamic institutions and their institutions of republican tradition.
Right.
But that said, practically, obviously, in the situation, we are neither Islamic nor republic. And this happened because, that's my personal view, I believe that the very concept of the social contract or the concept of sovereignty, it's not same in a religious theocratic system or in a democratic system. So if you try and mix two systems with very different value structures, you end up with something which we are experiencing right now. So I always feel that the contemporary issues we are facing right now is because we have tried and include a lot of contradictory values and institutions in a country. So we need to set and we need to decide where actually we want this country to go.
Right. So how do you see the prospects of political stability in Pakistan?
Okay.
It would be very interesting to know your point of view.
So the answer would be a little longer.
Go on.
Okay, so a very common argument I hear from my students and from general public is that Pakistan might not be a good fit for a democracy, and the only issue, the issue of political instability is somehow linked with having democracy here. The reason being that political instability started in Pakistan in around 1970s.
Yeah.
We tried an experiment. We had a first elections, and it ended up with the separation of East Pakistan. Then in 1977 we had another election, another wave of political instability, and ended up with a dictatorship. And then in 1990s we again tried with democracy, and again it was a musical chair between PPP and PMIJ. And again, now that we have entered into another phase of democracy, so we were seeing the same thing.
Yeah.
And somehow we link it with democracy. We say that democracy has some problem, or maybe we are not fit for democracy, and political instability somehow is caused by it.
Yeah.
The thing being is that when I told you that there are two main objectives of democracy, political stability was never one of them. So democracy...
Just going by the book we have.
I mean, the classical writers who wrote on the democratic system, even the ones who supported the idea, they knew that democracy has this intrinsic issue that it can result in political instability, because it actually works on the principle of competition.
Right.
A lot of people are competing to have their voice heard. So it has to create some sort of political instability, but you have to add a lot of other values and institutions to ensure that this political instability doesn't go beyond control. And this is where liberalism comes in. This is where the role of constitution comes in. Constitution actually decides where is the limit, where you cannot go beyond, that
That's the
particular
domain for everyone and for every institution.
Yeah, so the problem I believe in Pakistan is because we have no respect for our constitutions. We, as a society, we feel that it's some sort of law book.
Yeah.
We never read constitution. We never.
It's just like a course book which you have to go through just to pass the exam as well.
So it has a ceremonial status, and we never try and implement it. We have no respect, and I mean it's becoming very, very common to say that. So what if it's in constitution? So what? I mean, it's not Quran. It's not. The thing is, in a republic system, constitution has a status of a holy book.
Yeah, of course.
So if you cannot
sacred thing, I guess, in a nation state's history or system as well.
So stability has to come from the constitutional sacrosanctity. Right. If you can't maintain that, you cannot have stability.
Yeah, so the result is the thing which we are witnessing, and we have been witnessing in the disturbance related to law and order situation in our country. So coming back to Arhama, I would like to ask about the Pakistan's relationship in contemporary situation with the Middle East, and more specifically, since we were hearing different news of the upcoming official visit of the Saudi Crown Prince MBS to Pakistan. So I would like to briefly touch this Pakistan and Middle Eastern and specifically KSA relationships importance.
For Pakistan, Pakistan's relationship in the Middle East, it extends to mostly the Gulf countries, and to Iran and Turkey as well. And in terms of I'll first touch upon MBS's visit.
So we are running short of time.
So I will touch MBS's visit first. So MBS was due to visit. The Prime Minister office gave this statement that he would visit at the end of November. And while he did not go to the Arab Summit in Algeria at the start, he did make an appearance at the G20 summit in Bali. But he had to postpone his Asia tour. Now, I believe it's also because of personal reasons, also because because of ongoing fever that is World Cup that's going to start on Sunday. Also because he would not want, like I've mentioned before, there's animosity between the Gulf states, right? So he would not want his visit to be overshadowed by what is happening in Qatar.
Yes.
So that is one reason why he has, that is one very potential reason why his Asia tour, including Pakistan, India and Bangladesh, I think also Bangladesh, was postponed. It was a number of countries.
It's confirmed it's postponed, not cancelled.
Not cancelled. I think it will be next year around the same time it happened in 2019. So, and the Gulf countries, Pakistan is significant. I'll just quickly hurry through this. It is significant to Pakistan because of CPEC. Basically, we have special economic zones. We've invited all the countries in the Gulf to come and invest, and they have voiced their interest in that. And in June, July 2022, Shahbaz Sharif also wanted to make it a trilateral agreement between China, Turkey and Pakistan. So, we're trying to get, they want to stave off oil dependence.
Yeah.
We want investment, and we're providing food in terms of food security.
Right.
We're providing avenues for investment. We want, in terms of energy security, we want help from them. They want agriculture, food security from us.
Thank you so much, Dr. Fizza and Ms. Arhama, coming over here. It was indeed a great pleasure to have you on our program. Viewers, this was all from our side in this episode of Prime Talk. Hopefully, we will continue our discussion on such topics in our upcoming episodes as well. Thank you so much for being over here, our participants and our viewers for watching us. It's time to say you goodbye. Allah Hafiz and take care.